Ever wanted to evangelize but don't know how or what to say? You want to tell people about Jesus, but you don't want to mess it up? Well, we have the resource for you coming up next.
Stephanie, welcome to the show.
Hello, thanks for having me. It's great to be here.
For those of you guys who don't know, so Stephanie Parks is here with us today to talk about the book that Focus, the Fellowship of Catholic Universities, just published called The Foundations for Discipleship. And Stephanie was one of the editors, so we're super excited to have her here. For those of you who want to know a little more about Stephanie, she is a Focus, so Fellowship of Catholic University missionary. She's been a missionary for 6 years. And for the past 2 years, she's been at the Focus main campus, helping out with the new hire training. So when they get new missionaries, she's the one that teaches them how to evangelize and not mess it up and what to say.
And now she's here to help us.
Okay, so Stephanie, could you just give us like a quick background about your faith journey and then how you got to be a Focus missionary?
Yeah, great story. I could go on and on, but we'll keep it short. I grew up in a kind of nominally Catholic household. We kind of jumped through the hoops, did the sacraments and those kind of things, but faith was not a topic of conversation anywhere in our home. I encountered Jesus in a pretty significant way at a church camp when I was a freshman in high school, but didn't really have any support to go anywhere. So I had these snippets of Jesus, things that I had learned, some experiences that I had, but really just nowhere to grow and nowhere to go. So I showed up to college my very first weekend, went to Mass because I didn't know what else to do. And a missionary got up who was from my home state and said, "I'm starting a Bible study. Do any of you freshmen want to join?" And so my twin sister and I looked at each other, said, "Here's another person from Nebraska. We should get to know her. I have no idea what a Bible study is, but we should do it." And we joined a Bible study with some other athletes on our campus. So my twin sister and I both ran track and cross country. There were about 10 of us that jumped into a Bible study. And that kind of started a faith journey there for me that is continuing to this day, of really being catechized well and in a community that taught me to grow in a number of ways. So a couple years later, led my own Bible study, applied to be a missionary, really was just transformed through a life of study and a life of prayer, and really just wanted to do what the Lord was asking in the gospel. He wanted us to lay down his life for him, and I wanted to know what that was really like for at least 2 years in Focus. So about 7 years ago, said yes to being a Focus missionary, thought I was going to do 2 years and be done, and here I am 6 years later working at the headquarters. So it's been quite a journey.
Jesus has definitely continued to call to take that initial yes. What an amazing story of, I think, almost something that we would say like typically isn't the path of like standing up in front of the parish, inviting you into study. It worked. You went. And what an incredible yes that you gave that continued to build upon. Can you tell us a little bit about your role and kind of where this book came from, what it's being used for?
Absolutely. So I first came across this project and heard about it when I was still a missionary on campus. And so actively discipling students, leading Bible studies every week on campus. In my fourth year, I heard about this project that they wanted to put down the tradition and the teachings and the wisdom of Focus into a resource that missionaries could use, that students could use to take what we as missionaries learn at training every year, to actually take it in a written down form back to campus to teach people with additional clarity in a way that is repeatable. All of those kinds of things. And so heard about the project, had an English background from college, loved to write. And so I said, that sounds like the perfect project for me. And so the project was really born out of a desire for missionaries to have something a little bit more repeatable and a little bit more concrete to take back to campus, instead of trying to remember, there was that class this summer that taught me about sharing the gospel. Did I write down my notes? Do I have everything I need to know? How do I bring this back and share it well out of memory or off of practice? And now we've got these resources to go through to really support us in that mission. And we've seen missionary staff be so convicted by the help that these resources provide for us to do our jobs, but then to see our students and our parishioners who are using this as well just grow so much in confidence of being able to share the gospel and the mission of Jesus Christ by not having to have it memorized and not having to say it perfectly, but to be able to build a conversation around these articles that actually does transform into real habits in real life and actually allows people to live out the faith in a real way.
Yeah. Go ahead.
So I actually saw a lot of these articles previously when I was in discipleship, and I can say like I have these pieces of paper like in this ratty old folder that like I try to keep all the piece of papers together to like try to have these conversations, and like I was like, oh, it's all in this neatly ordered book. Like I can use this, and like this is all the resources that I've like tried to compile into my pitiful folder.
It's so nice where you're not looking back at your notes. You're like, all right, this is Acts 2,475. You're like, I don't think there were that many chapters of Acts, but okay, but now you actually have. And I think when Katie and I were reading this, it felt like we were going through new hire training, like in a good way. It was just like, we're like, oh, like this is it. Like, this is what they use. So, okay. Could you walk us through just kind of the basic model of focus? Because Katie and I have really been impacted by this model. It's something that we have tried to share with others. But for those who don't know kind of how focus walks you from start to finish through this model, could you tell a little about that?
Yeah. So one thing that we always say is that Focus just does the model of the church. Focus has not invented anything new. We're just doing what the church has done for 2,000 years and maybe tweaking some language a little bit and making it a little more accessible for today. But we're really doing what the church has always done, which is help people through a process of conversion, building them up in formation, and sending them out on mission. So this process of conversion and then formation and then mission, which we in Focus call win, build, and send. So this is our process where we win people over, whether that's students, parishioners, coworkers, anyone that we meet. We win them over to Jesus through our witness, through our friendship with them, through asking good questions, and eventually through sharing the gospel in a very explicit way and inviting someone to make Jesus the center of their life. Then the build stage is the stage of building someone up in the life of a Christian. So we talk a lot about the verse Acts 2:42 here, right? So the habits of the early apostles: prayer, fellowship, teaching of the apostles, the breaking of the bread. These are the habits that they lived out. We want to live these out as well as disciples of Jesus. And then eventually, as we're living out this faithfulness, we invite others into the call to mission to teach them how to evangelize other people, to reach the whole world for Jesus Christ. And we move into this send phase where we really teach people how to go on mission, how to really reach out to other people in ways that they may not be comfortable with. How do we really encounter the lost? How do we bring them into a friendship with Jesus? How do we lead a Bible study? How do we share a testimony? How do we do these practical skills that teach other people the faith while continuing to be built up and sent ourselves again and again and again, culminating in a lifelong process? This isn't just a one and done process. This isn't something that we as missionaries do as a job and then we leave and then we're done doing this. We really talk about, because this is the heart of the church and the mission of the church, it really is a lifelong mission for all of us. Not just a club when you're in college, not just something to do when you're on staff, but really something that the Lord and the church is inviting all of us to do for the rest of our lives. And hopefully this tool is something that will help us do that.
Mm-hmm. I think Katie and I, again, have been really impacted by this model, and even just a lot of the stuff that Focus produces when we got out of college, and now we were, showing up at Air Force bases and trying to start Bible studies and stuff. We were like, oh, what are we going to do? And we're like, oh, we could just use this Focus Bible study that we've used, and it was awesome, right? Because a lot of this stuff, yes, it's geared towards college students, but it's more of like your phase of your faith journey. So you could be 15, you could be 20, you could be 30, but if you're
60,
you'd be 60. Yeah. But if you're just starting out in the faith journey, then you're in the win phase. And so,
and you need the crux.
Yes.
And salvation history, story of salvation.
Yeah, absolutely.
So when you do the new hire training, so new hires are your new missionaries. So they're probably someone who has gone through some form of your focus formation, and now they've kind of like you signed up and said, okay, I'm committed towards Christ. I'm ready to try to share the gospel, but I don't know what that looks like. What do you find are some of the biggest stumbling blocks or like hurdles that they have to jump through now that they're on like that side of the table, reaching out to others?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, definitely. I think something that I think all staff kind of struggle with is what does this look like to do full time? This isn't just an extracurricular anymore. And I think sometimes when we're students, I remember this, I didn't think about it like that, but I sort of lived it like that until I was invited to do it full time. And there is a certain amount of trust that you have to give the Lord and to surrender, to say, I am fully yours 24/7 for at least the next 2 years. What does that look like to really live mission when you're home with your family over breaks, when you're on your campus, when you're at the SEEK conference with your students and with other missionaries? What does it look like to really live it full time? I think that's where, in a lot of ways, that's kind of the first hurdle is, am I really in this completely? Is my heart really in it completely? Or am I just in it for the part-time or because it was fun in college? So that's something I think about often as kind of the first hurdle. And then I think the second one is often just overcoming a lot of the insecurities that we face as missionaries of, who am I to share the gospel? Can I share the gospel? Can I lead people well? Or even, I've struggled with this, and this in the past. Am I worthy to do this work? Can the Lord really work through me? And I think something that our new staff training, we take all of our missionaries away for 3 weeks in the summer and do sort of a retreat style training. Then we have 3 weeks again at the end of the summer with their teams, and kind of removing our staff from the world and just giving them that time to be together and to be formed, really helps some of those insecurities rise to the surface so we can actually bring them to the Lord. And so that he can speak into them and to reinforce that call that, no, I have chosen you to be my missionary, and I will send you to a campus to change the world by his grace. So those are a couple of the hurdles, but it all comes back to surrender to the Lord. Absolutely. It's entirely his mission. And we're so fortunate to get to participate in it, and so honored and so humbled. But so often it's him doing all the work and us just trying to keep up in a lot of ways.
I think what you said was really cool about there are a lot of insecurities or anxieties when you step up, when you have that courage to try to share the gospel. But I think it's important to realize that, like, there's no minimum requirement to share the gospel. There's no like, oh, you have to be this holy. And I actually think it's a almost more powerful witness of people who are walking the journey and are like, come with me, instead of you're like, oh, I've been there, I'm so holy now, like this is how you do it. No, it's like we're all struggling. We are all sinners. We are all like trying to cooperate with God's grace and open ourselves to that, to trust more, and then just to take people along with that journey.
I think with that too, just for all of our listeners to remember that you are anointed. You are anointed for mission, that each one of us, whether you do this full time or you do this part time, or you do this as a volunteer in your parish, like, or you do it as a volunteer in your own house with your own family, like that all of us have been anointed if we have received our baptism, our confirmation, that the Holy Spirit dwells within us and wants to speak through you and to use your 2 fish and your 5 loaves and like those very little gifts that you feel like you may have, and to give those to the Lord and to know that he can do big things with small gifts, and that reality that he wants to speak through you. And so I think just having resources like this to overcome those barriers, because one of the things is, I think sometimes we're good at, we have an idea of the win, like we have an idea of the conversion, like we can have that Jesus encounter like you did as a freshman in high school, but then maybe our build is weak, we get some along the way, and then where's the send? And to realize like each of us is called to that. And I think that that's what's so incredible about this resource actually, is the send aspect. That's something that Focus does well. Instead of just kind of sitting in the like comfort of my own prayer life. Like, yes, I need to have that prayer life, but I then need to give from that.
Yeah. Do you have any stories from anything that brought up from that?
Yeah, I do actually. This is one of my favorite stories to tell from campus, and it's kind of this whole idea of, it doesn't take much to go on mission, but it does take everything. It doesn't take much skill or training all the time, but it really does take your whole heart. And so I remember my very first year on campus, I was getting to know a girl named Jenna. We were good friends. She was on the basketball team, and she was ready to get her whole basketball team in a Bible study. And she said, I've tried inviting, some girls are interested, some aren't, but my roommate, this is the tricky one. So they had lived together for 3 years at this point, and her roommate flat out denied everything. So they were best friends in everything except the faith. That was the one thing that they did not share. And so we just kind of took it upon our hearts, the two of us, to really, how can we really pray for her roommate? How can we really see if the Lord wants to do something here? And so I remember kind of halfway through the semester, I get a call from Jenna, and she said, Allison's coming to Bible study. And I remember being very shocked and thinking, what happened? What are we doing? And she said, I'll tell you about it, but she's coming tonight. Get ready, here we go. And so she walks in, Allison and Jenna, we're friends, we're laughing. And Allison walks in, not a smile on her face, pretty stone cold, frankly. And I was pretty nervous that I really wanted this girl to have a good experience and to be open. And again, not to mess it up in front of her after we've been praying for her for so many months. And so she stayed the whole Bible study. There wasn't anything special. I didn't notice a ton of reaction, but she stayed and she kept coming back. And slowly I was kind of talking to Jenna, and Jenna was talking to Allison, and it had come out that Allison was kind of going through a big breakup and going through some things at school. And finally, a little ways into the semester, after she'd been coming to Bible study for a while, she just kind of hit a rock bottom point and said, Jenna, I need you to take me to church. I need something else. Like, the way I'm living isn't doing it, and I need something else. So she came to Mass that Sunday, and then a couple weeks later came to our fall Newman Center retreat. So we had a Holy Spirit retreat in the fall, and the basketball girls could only come for one night because they had games that weekend. And so, of course, the one night that they could come is the night of adoration. And so most of these girls are not Catholic. They have no idea what adoration is. They don't know what Jesus in the Eucharist is. So we're kind of preparing the girls on the ride up there, and I made little handouts of what's going on and what can you pray with. And so we hand out the papers to the girls, and the music starts, and we start praying, and just kind of had, a beautiful night. I didn't notice anything special, but came up to the girls afterward and just kind of said, what did you think? How was it? And I remember Allison saying, yeah, that was really peaceful. It was really peaceful. And I said, that is a win. She didn't say it was weird. She had a positive experience. She's not running out of here thinking we're crazy. Positive experience. Little did I know, I found out a few months later that she, in that time of adoration, in that time of prayer, she had never prayed before in this way. She had never actually sat down and prayed. And she had a profound encounter with Jesus, who had done some healing in her heart about her parents' divorce that had happened a few years earlier, that she was deeply wounded by. And she met Jesus in those memories and in those encounters, and had a profound conversion there. So she just became on fire, so hungry, asking a million questions. Throughout the rest of that year, she joined RCIA. She joined the church. 3 months later, she applied herself to be a focused missionary, again, fighting all of those same insecurities of, I've been Catholic for 3 months, and I think I want to be a Catholic missionary. And she just had this confidence that if I'm going to do it, the Lord is going to do it. And it's not me, but the Lord is going to do it. So she was a missionary for 2 years. And actually, I remember in her second year on staff, I got to be her staff mentor. So we talked regularly through her time on staff. And I remember the day she called me her second year, she called me and said, Steph, you'll never guess what happened. And I said, what? And she said, I'm going to visit some sisters this weekend. I think this might be it. So about 2 years ago, she joined a small order of sisters in Minnesota, and is in her novitiate year with the sisters in Minnesota. So just a profound story of someone who was radically taken in by the Lord, and pursued mission and pursued her formation deeply, and the Lord just transformed her, and she allowed it to happen, and just beautifully received what he was giving and responded to the call to mission just as an outflow of that encounter with him. Just one of the most profound stories of conversion I've ever seen. So so grateful to have witnessed it.
Wow, that's really incredible
and beautiful.
Yeah.
And such a witness too, like God is the one who does that, but yet like the people along the way that needed to say yes to that invitation, to continue to pray for her, to continue to invite her in, to invite her to something that, like, I think it's easy when we're with somebody and we're like, well, they're not Catholic. Well, they like clearly aren't for this. Like, they like clearly wouldn't be interested. Like there are 5,000 times that we can say that and refuse the Holy Spirit's prompting on our hearts to invite them into a relationship, and into, more importantly, a relationship with Christ.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's so humbling to think that the Lord wants this process of conversion for everyone, but he chooses to use us and other people like to do that. He could have done it anyway, but he's like, no, I want you listeners to to be the ones to like to share the word. I think that's really beautiful.
Absolutely. Yeah. 3 years of invitations before Allison said yes to anything. So just puts life in perspective a little bit. What is mission actually? It's not the quick yes, will you join my Bible study? It's the years and years of perseverance.
Stephanie, what would you say to our listeners who aren't on a college campus, who, read the Focus, the stuff that you guys put out, they hear the stories and they're like, yeah, I understand. Like, it's great for college campuses, right? You just got like a million young adults walking around and you're just like, you, like, come to the Bible study. Yeah. What you doing? You're not doing anything right now. Come here. Here's some pizza, like conversion, bam. But now when they look around at their own parish and they say, there aren't any young adults, there's nothing going on. Like, I think there's just some different challenges or some different perspectives that happen in the parish. Can you talk to this model and how that could be applied to the parish?
Absolutely. Yeah. I think one of the challenges of the parish, obviously, is that people are very, settled into their lives. They're not necessarily looking for huge change the way that a college freshman shows up and is ready to do just about anything in this new stage of life. So definitely a challenge there. But I do think something that's beautiful about the parish that we don't always get to tap into on the college campus is actually the depth of the hunger and the need for Jesus that sometimes a 19-year-old or a 20-year-old just can't comprehend or hasn't experienced enough life yet to have the deep need for Jesus and the need to rely on someone outside of themselves. Whereas people in the parish are hungry to know that there is an answer to their suffering and an answer to their longings or their unanswered prayers or any of these things. And so we've seen so many stories of that in our parish missionaries within Focus, that it takes a long time to build that relationship. You're very rarely meeting with people weekly in the parish like we do on campus. It's great if Bible study happens twice a month and not weekly or more often like we do on campus. So the win stage and even some of the build stage takes a long time. But once it takes root, there's a depth there that is very hard to extinguish. Whereas a college campus, one of our biggest kind of struggles or our pain points is students who graduate our program, and do we know if they will remain faithful for the rest of their lives? Yeah. We sure hope so. But I've known students myself that have been in my Bible studies or that I have invested in that I know are no longer practicing. And that's just a hard reality. And there's a way in the parish that just mission is entirely long-term in the parish. There's very little of it that's short-term, the same way there is on a college campus, because it expires in 2, 3, 4 years. But in the parish, that it's for real. If people are coming, they're not coming for the free t-shirt. Most likely they're not coming because they didn't have anything else to do on a Friday night. They're really coming because something is stirring within them, even if they don't know what it is. And there's just kind of that depth and that permanence there, that if you can overcome the struggle of getting things to happen and persevering there, the depth is just really beautiful, and it answers that deep need that is there and maybe isn't being answered in another way.
That's such a good perspective. We have seen, so in the military, we move every couple of years. And so similar to a college campus, and we've been surprised. We've been running digital Bible studies and been able to maintain relationships with people that we, walked through RCIA with as their instructors in RCIA, but now have them in small group and are now able to walk with them years and years down the road. And just the reality that it does take sometimes more than, I want an immediate result and I want to see it right now, which it's not about results anyways, because I just plant the seeds and I let Jesus, that's on Jesus. But the aside of like the slow pace and then that long-term conversion. And I think also what you hit on of like, we've tried everything else. So like you're sitting there and you're like, I have a successful job and I have this family and I have this X, Y, and Z thing that was supposed to make me happy. And yet realizing like that is not what I'm made for and that's not my purpose, and that happiness is of divine origin, that is placed within our hearts from God to help draw us to him. And I think that is such a beautiful aspect of what you touched on that is potential within the parish.
Yeah, I think too, just something that you said really rang true to my heart, where It really is the long game or the infinite game, especially in the parishes where sometimes I get a little discouraged when I'm like, oh, like these guys in my Bible study, like it's been a year, like why aren't they
Get it
out? Like, yeah,
together.
dude, like what?
Go
You
start
know?
your own.
Yeah, and but to realize like no, they are going through this transformation. We've had guys that haven't been to confession in like 17 years that have gone back. You know, people that have gotten their kids baptized that would never have done that before. So I guess the lens is just slightly different where you're not going to see maybe, I mean, there are the transformations, right? But it's more of the long game. It's knowing that they are going to be raising their kids Catholic. It's that that in their jobs, in their communities, that now they are going to be supporting ministries. It's just like it just looks different, but I think the impact could still be the same.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, it's like the seed in the sower, right? You know, the seed that gets to take root deeply, which it gets to do that in a parish in a particular way that it maybe doesn't on a campus. So, yeah.
And why it's important to have both, you know, to have that initial seed in campus, to facilitate some of that like initial growing, to experience small group, because if it is sporadic and spread out in the parish, you need that in college. You need that formation of the sacraments, of holy hours, where you have the time and the space to know what that looks like, to learn how to pray. And so I'm incredibly grateful for the ways that Focus was able to impact our formation in college that led us on mission in the parish ultimately. And so to see, you know, again, these resources written down to help people walk through that win, that build, that send, and so many of your other resources of what the purpose is, what are the habits, what are the tools, the conversations, personally formation, and then what I'm giving to somebody else too.
Yeah. Stephanie, any other thoughts on the book or on the model or on life? I don't know.
On how to evangelize.
Yeah, how to evangelize. I think this is a big part of the Focus model is the idea of incarnational evangelization. There's an article about that in the book. Highly recommend. Great place to start. If you want to know sort of Focus's initial bread and butter, incarnational evangelization is evangelization through friendship and through our person, which is something I think that is really going to bring the church to life in the next few years. We've talked about this statistic might be a little bit outdated now, but we had initially in the next like 5 years or something, a statistic came out that we'll have roughly 2 to 3 graduates from a Focus campus program for every parish in the U.S., you know, statistically, so that won't work out exactly. But what might that look like for the church in the next 5 years if people who have been trained in these skills and with this curriculum are actually in parishes, settling their roots and living this out? And it's much more difficult, you know, we talked about that, but the hope is there. I am so excited to see. I think we on staff have gotten a unique perspective of seeing Focus really grow within the last 5 years. And I think we're on this cusp of that it's going to start bleeding over into the parish very soon, and already is in some ways. But I think it's going to start getting bigger, which I just can't wait to see. You know, it's proof that the model works. And we don't always get to see the fruit, and we don't always need to, but when we get to, that's really special. So
yeah, I think that aspect of, you know, one of the Focus statistics of like, if the spiritual multiplication. So the idea that all it takes is for me to have a relationship with 3 people, and that can ultimately change the world in 30 plus years. And
33
so this
years.
Reality, 33 years. And this just like ability that I don't have to lead 1,000 people. I don't have to lead an entire campus. I don't have to lead an entire parish. But if I can invest in 3 people and those people can invest, like the power of that. And again, like to break down that barrier and that insecurity, I think, is such an important reminder.
Absolutely.
So where else can people find out about what Focus has going on?
About the book?
About the book?
Absolutely. Yeah. Yep. The book is available at www.focus.org/foundation. So that's our homepage for the book. You can order it there. You can also order it on Amazon or on our publisher's website. Our Sunday Visitor partnered with us to publish this incredible book. We spent so long trying to get the cover right. Just order one and feel it. The texture of the cover we really, really worked on. So it's a really beautiful resource. So you can pick up a copy there. We also have online copies of the articles on our website for people that just want to see here or there what a few of them look like. And our Focus Equip website is the home for all of our resources. So our Bible studies, again, these articles, our blog is there. So many resources that we offer are on focusequip.org there. And then I would always recommend, if you want a taste of focus, come to the Seek Conference, Seek 2022 in Salt Lake City. It's going to be amazing. It's the best taste of focus that the world gets to see in a lot of ways. So those are some great places to find out more about what we do.
Thank you.
That's so awesome. I will also make a pitch. So the Focus missionaries are mostly supported just by donations and people that help out. So we will leave a link for Stephanie's donation link. So if you want to support Stephanie, hear more about what she has going on and Focus, please do that, because again, your little contributions can just
have a huge effect.
Yeah, the multiplication of just the little things that we can give are so beautiful. So Stephanie, again, thank you so much for coming on the show. We'll leave links to everything that we talked about in the description for all of our listeners. We're praying for you guys. Until next time, God bless.